Marcus had always believed that loyalty was the foundation of every meaningful relationship. For 15 years, he'd been the kind of friend who showed up at 3 a.m. when your car broke down, at hospital waiting rooms when your world fell apart, at celebrations when life finally smiled back at you. His best friend Daniel was more than a friend. He was the brother Marcus never had. They'd met in college, two ambitious young men with dreams bigger than their bank accounts. While Marcus pursued architecture, Daniel dove into investment banking. They were different in almost every way. Marcus was thoughtful and reserved, while Daniel was charismatic and bold, but their friendship was unshakable. Or so Marcus thought. Daniel's wife, Sophia, was the kind of woman who turned heads without trying. She had this effortless elegance, with cascading chestnut hair and eyes that seemed to hold entire galaxies. But what struck Marcus most wasn't her beauty. It was the light she brought into Daniel's life. When Daniel talked about her, his whole face transformed. "She's my anchor," he'd say, and Marcus would smile, happy that his brother had found his person. Marcus had his own life, his own pursuits. He'd thrown himself into his work after his own relationship ended 3 years ago. The architectural firm he'd started was finally gaining recognition. Success felt hollow without someone to share it with, but he'd learned to find fulfillment in his work, his friendships, and the small moments of beauty that life offered when you paid attention. It was a Tuesday evening in late September when everything changed. The city was painted in shades of amber and gold, autumn working its magic on the urban landscape. Marcus had stopped by Daniel's penthouse apartment to drop off the vintage whiskey he'd promised him a celebration for Daniel's recent promotion. Daniel was away on a business trip in Singapore, but he'd given Marcus the spare key years ago. "Just leave it on the counter," Daniel had texted. "Thanks, brother. You're the best." Marcus entered the apartment, expecting silence. Instead, he heard laughter, Sophia's unmistakable laugh, followed by a deeper voice that definitely wasn't Daniel's. His heart began to race, each beat echoing in his ears like a warning drum. He should have left. Every instinct told him to turn around, to pretend he'd never been there. But loyalty, that same loyalty he'd built his life around, kept his feet moving forward. If something was wrong, if Sophia was in danger, he needed to know. The living room overlooked the city, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the skyline like a postcard. And there, on the cream-colored sofa Daniel had spent weeks choosing, sat Sophia. She wasn't alone. The man beside her was someone Marcus recognized, Adrian, a colleague from Daniel's firm. They weren't just sitting close. They were intertwined, speaking in hushed, intimate tones that left no room for misinterpretation. Adrian's hand rested possessively on her knee. Sophia's head tilted toward him, her smile radiant and unguarded, in a way Marcus had rarely seen. Time seemed to fracture. Marcus stood frozen, the bottle of whiskey suddenly impossibly heavy in his hands. Every possible reaction flooded through him: rage, disbelief, the urge to confront them, the desperate wish to unsee what he'd witnessed. Sophia looked up. Their eyes met. The color drained from her face. "Marcus," she whispered, the name coming out like a prayer and a curse simultaneously. Adrian stood quickly, his expression cycling through surprise, guilt, and finally, defiance. "This isn't what you think," he started, but the cliché fell flat even as he spoke it. Marcus said, his voice surprisingly steady. "Just don't." Sophia stood now too, her elegance replaced by something raw and vulnerable. "Please," she said, tears already forming. "Let me explain." Marcus set the whiskey bottle down on the marble entryway table with deliberate care. "The only person you need to explain to is Daniel." "Marcus, please." Sophia's voice broke. "I know how this looks. I know what you're thinking. But it's not simple. It's never simple." "Betrayal rarely is," Marcus replied, surprised by the steadiness in his own voice. His hands were shaking, but his resolve was crystallizing. "How long?" Sophia wrapped her arms around herself. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of Daniel coming home to someone who was living a double life. Half a year of family dinners and friendly gatherings where Marcus had sat across from both of them, completely oblivious. "He worships you," Marcus said quietly. "Do you understand that? Daniel would move mountains for you." "I know," Sophia whispered. "I love him. I do. I also." "Love isn't a feeling you fall into and out of like a swimming pool," Marcus interrupted, his architect's mind clinging to structure when everything felt chaotic. "It's a choice. Every single day, it's a choice. And you've been choosing wrong." Adrian stepped forward. "Look, man, we didn't plan this." Marcus held up his hand. "I don't care about your justifications. I care about my brother. And right now, he deserves to know the truth." Sophia sank back onto the sofa, her glamorous facade crumbling. "Will you tell him?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. "I have to," Marcus said. "If I don't, I'm complicit. And I refuse to betray him the way you have." The next few hours were among the hardest of Marcus's life. He drove aimlessly through the city, phone calls from Sophia lighting up his screen repeatedly until he finally blocked her number. He thought about his own failed relationship, about trust and how fragile it truly was. He thought about Daniel's smile when he talked about Sophia and how Marcus was about to shatter his best friend's world. But he also thought about what real friendship meant. It wasn't just showing up for the good times. It was having the courage to tell hard truths, even when those truths cut like glass. He called Daniel at midnight, Singapore time. "Brother, I need you to come home. Something's happened. Is everyone okay? Are you hurt?" The immediate concern in Daniel's voice made Marcus's chest tighten. "I'm fine, Keen. But you need to come home." "Please." 23 hours later, Daniel walked into Marcus's apartment. He looked exhausted from the 16-hour flight, confusion etched across his features. "What's going on? You're scaring me?" Marcus had rehearsed this conversation 100 times. Every version felt inadequate. In the end, he chose directness tempered with compassion. "I need to tell you something about Sophia. And I need you to know that I'm here for you, no matter what comes next." He told him everything. Watching his best friend's face transform from confusion to understanding to devastation was like watching a building collapse in slow-motion, beautiful structure, giving way to rubble and ruin. Daniel didn't cry, not at first. He just sat there, processing, his hands clasped tightly together. "You're sure?" he finally asked. "I'm sure." 6 months, Daniel repeated, tasting the words. 6 months of coming home to someone I didn't really know. The weeks that followed were brutal. Daniel moved in with Marcus temporarily, unable to face the penthouse that no longer felt like home. Sophia called repeatedly, sent letters, showed up at Marcus's building twice before Daniel finally agreed to meet her. Their conversation lasted for hours. When Daniel emerged, he looked older somehow, as if the ordeal had aged him years in a single afternoon. "She says she's sorry." Daniel told Marcus later that night over takeout. Neither of them was eating. That it was a mistake. "God. She wants to work on our marriage." "What do you want?" Marcus asked. Daniel was quiet for a long time. "I want to be able to trust again, but I don't know if I can. Not with her. Maybe not with anyone." The divorce took 8 months. It wasn't contentious. Sophia signed everything without contest, as if she knew she'd forfeited her right to fight. Daniel threw himself into work, into therapy, into slowly rebuilding the parts of himself that had been damaged by betrayal. And Marcus was there. Every step, every setback, every small victory. One evening, a year after that fateful Tuesday, Daniel and Marcus sat on Marcus's balcony, watching the city lights flicker to life. Daniel looked different now, still carrying the scar, but no longer defined by it. "I need to thank you," Daniel said suddenly. "You don't?" "Yes, I do." Daniel turned to face him. "You could have looked away. You could have told yourself it wasn't your business. But you loved me enough to tell me a truth that hurt. That's rare, Marcus. That kind of loyalty is rare. Marcus felt emotion welling up. You're my brother. I'd do it again. I know you would. And that's why you're the best man I know. Daniel smiled, and for the first time in a year, it reached his eyes. I'm not fully healed yet. I don't know if I ever will be completely, but I'm getting there. And I couldn't have done it without you. They sat in comfortable silence, two friends who'd weathered a storm together, and emerged not broken, but stronger. Months later, Daniel started dating again. He was cautious, careful, but hopeful. I'm learning to trust again, he told Marcus. Not blindly, but wisely. Marcus watched his friend rediscover joy, watched him learn that one person's betrayal didn't define all of humanity. And in watching Daniel's healing, Marcus found his own a renewed faith in the power of authentic connection and the beauty of standing by the people you love, even when it's hard. Because that's what true friendship is. Not the glamorous moments captured in photographs. Not the easy times when everything is laughter and light. It's the courage to tell hard truths. It's the strength to hold someone when they're falling apart. It's the daily choice to show up, to stay present, to be loyal even when loyalty costs you something. Sophia sent Marcus a letter a year after the divorce. In it, she thanked him for exposing her affair. You saved us both from living a lie, she wrote. I've spent this year becoming someone I can respect again. What I did was unforgivable. But your honesty gave us all a chance to rebuild on truth instead of deception. Marcus never responded. Some chapters close without needing a final word. As for Marcus himself, he learned that loyalty isn't about perfection. It's about integrity. It's about knowing that when you look in the mirror, you can respect the person looking back. It's about understanding that doing the right thing often means doing the hard thing. And sometimes, the most glamorous thing you can do is simply tell the truth.